Chapter 15. Victor had struggled to keep his head above water. His boots, his cloak, and his guns were ideal for combat on the land, but in the water they seemed to pull him further into the sea. Of course, even if he had learned to swim, the frigid temperatures of the seawater were not helpful. Somehow, even in shock, he had been able to think of Jennifer. He had found a life jacket that he had secured to her so that she would float. He had also scrambled and given lifesavers to Row 82 because of his metal implants, Lucas to help with his pack of survival gear, and of course Jennifer. Jonathan had ensured that Kirana had a lifesaver, and he promised Victor that he would share with her. Stephanie had rushed to the side of the cabin and had begun digging through supplies. Sig had tried to get her to abandon the ship with him, but she would not move. Sig had stayed behind with her. The next thing he had remembered was a loud crash and a sudden rush of cold water, followed by darkness. When he awoke, he found himself in a dark room made of dingy bricks. There were black iron bars in a small window through which the subtle light of the moon shone. A thick iron ring was welded to a metal plate in the wall. The chain that linked his shackles was looping through this ring, fastening him loosely to the wall. As he looked around, he saw other rings on the wall, but it appeared he was the only prisoner present. There was a thick wooden door across from him, and it did not appear to have any handles with which it could be opened from the inside. The occasional sound could be heard, but Victor could not positively say whether it was coming from the other side of the door or something outside the barred window. Scratches and thuds with little regularity gave him almost no information concerning his whereabouts. The air flowing into the cell was cold, but he realized his clothing was dry. He searched himself and realized that while his guns were gone, the Heaven's Breath key was still on a chain about his neck. He hoped that the others were in better circumstances. With any luck, he would receive a visit from Jonathan and Kirana, or perhaps even Lizard. His thoughts returned to Jennifer. He hoped that the life preserver he had secured on her had been sufficient to help her survive, and that perhaps she had found herself in a better situation when she had regained consciousness. His train of thought was interrupted by the distinct sound of footsteps approaching. Victor sat up straight, hoping to focus his thoughts on something that would give him a better idea of who his captors were. As the door opened with a groan, a man with average height and a large gray cloak appeared in the doorway. "A demon worshipper?" asked Victor. "Yes," replied the man, "but I need not be your enemy." Victor frowned with skepticism. "My name is Carson Price," said the man. "I am known as the Demon Prophet." "Prophet?" asked Victor in surprise. "I thought it was a demon prophetess." "Sarah Hawkins has gone into hiding," replied Carson. "She was quite interested in why you were going down in the south, though I did not find out why." The memories of the battle with the destroyer came rushing back to Victor. "I am currently a part of a new organization of demon worshippers known as the Syndicate," said Carson. "Most of our direction comes from the lovely Angelica Sterling, who succeeded Hellfire as the leader of the fire demon worshippers." "Succeeded Hellfire?" asked Victor skeptically. "Well, all the demon lords have gone into hiding," explained Carson. "No one knows where they are, so everyone that's left has been given a wonderful opportunity to join the Syndicate." Victor fought the impulse to roll his eyes. He knew exactly what was meant by the word opportunity. It meant join or die. "You said that we need not be enemies," said Victor, "but I am chained to the wall. What do you want?" His question provoked a smile from Carson Price. His jagged yellow teeth were unsettling, but Victor was determined not to show emotion. "I want you to prove your fitness," said Carson. The way he said the word fitness took Victor by surprise. It was the same manner by which the augments spoke of it. They used it to mean worthy of survival. This was completely unexpected from demon worshippers. While they were expected to be selfish and sadistic, they typically did not care about proving survival of the fittest among their kind. "You can even use your key," added Carson. "So what exactly do I have to do to prove my fitness?" asked Victor. "Survive," said Carson with a sadistic grin. "We are having a tournament. The reward is 10 million credits. The amount was so large it was ludicrous. "You don't have 10 million credits, said Victor with a frown. "You're obviously not a fool," said Carson. "It surprised me how much money was in the treasury vault of the Federalist States as well." Victor did not know what the Federalist States were, or why the term should make the demon worshipper's words more credible, but he also did not want to let on that he was from the future. He decided that it might upset his captor to know that, in the future, no one had heard of the Syndicate, and that the demon lords had come out of hiding, somehow having prolonged their lives for 500 years. "What kind of tournament is it?" asked Victor. Carson smirked. "You divine key-bearers are so quaint," he said. Victor felt offended, even though he could tell that Carson had not intended to slight him, only to make an observation. "There will be pairs of fighters selected by myself and the other masters of the Syndicate. The fighters are considered our assets, and we are considered their sponsors. In this manner, the Syndicate masters are also competing with each other. The winner, of course, advances, and the master whose asset they are wins the losing competitor as a sacrifice." Victor tried to hide his disdain. Certainly he had killed people before. It had even been his livelihood as a bounty hunter. Killing for money had not burdened his conscience when he was taking out slavers, augments, and demon worshippers. Of course, he would likely be doing the same here, but he had never killed to assist a demon worshipper, fuel their lust for death, or power their black key. A bitter flavor welled up in the back of Victor's mouth. He pressed his fingernails into the palms of his hands to create a pain on which he could focus instead of the prospect of being a gladiator for a demon worshipper. "How soon does the tournament begin?" asked Victor. "Brave words," said Carson. "There are 2 weeks. You will be provided with food and training equipment to help you prepare." "My guns?" asked Victor. Carson burst out laughing. No," said Carson. "The Syndicate masters are certainly powerful, but we are not stupid. You will use melee weapons. Contestants are permitted to use implants or augmentations and any keys. Of course, most of the others have demon keys." The way that Carson said the word "most" gave Victor a glimmer of hope. Of course, he could have meant that most of the contestants in general used demon keys, but he might have meant that most of the people that had keys available to them used demon keys. There was a chance that his friends might be there. Unfortunately, that also meant there was a chance that he might have to fight them. "Serve me well, and I will make you wealthy," promised Carson in a sincere tone. He turned around and his gray cloak brushed the dingy bricks on the floor. "You may consider me your sponsor. My guards will attend to you soon." He walked out the door and slammed it shut, leaving Victor alone in chains to consider his circumstances. Just as promised, about an hour later, a large masked man appeared in Victor's doorway with a plate of food. The meal actually appeared appealing, which surprised Victor as he sniffed the air in anticipation of the medium steak and steaming potatoes on the plate. The man placed the plate on the floor and unlocked the shackles that had bound Victor to the wall. "Don't even think about escaping," threatened the guard. He had a tight tank top that revealed his large arms and torso. He had a pair of loose-fitting pants and large black boots as well. Victor noted that he did not have a demon key. "Are you participating in the tournament?" asked Victor. "Yes," replied the guard. "Who wouldn't want a crack at 10 million credits?" The guard laughed softly, content that he had intimidated Victor. He turned and left the room, slamming the thick wooden door shut. Victor turned to the plate on the floor. He smiled as he took the plastic fork that was sticking up out of the mashed potatoes and began eating. The flavor was quite good, and it was not long before he had devoured the food entirely. After his meal, he leapt up and grabbed the iron bars in the small window of his cell. The moons shone brightly in the sky and illuminated the tile roofs on several buildings. The stucco on the walls had the illusion of being smooth, like the thick snow on the hills of the cold zone, only they were covered with soft browns, yellows, blues, and greens. Large cacti and yucca could be seen in the medians of dark paved roads. There was nothing visible that let him know what direction he faced, or how close he might be to the sea. He pulled on the bars, but found that they were too strong to be bent by his efforts. His efforts were interrupted by the masked guard returning to his cell. "I thought I told you not to try escaping," thundered the guard. He rushed toward Victor and lowered his muscular shoulder. Victor pulled himself up by the bars as the guard crashed into the wall. Victor leapt down on top of the guard and threw a punch toward his masked face. The guard took the brunt of the punch, but did not seem to be seriously affected by it. He twisted around toward Victor and jabbed quickly, striking Victor in the face. The hit stunned him and forced him to stumble backwards. "I thought you were supposed to be powerful, the way Carson Price spoke," laughed the guard as he leapt toward Victor. Victor rolled out of the way of the attack and spun around with a kick. His foot seemed to bounce off of the guard. Seizing the opportunity, the guard lunged and punched, knocking Victor to the floor. "You're nothing," laughed the guard as he kicked at Victor. The sound of bones breaking as the guard repeatedly kicked Victor in the ribs was diminished only because of the tremendous pain. Victor could hardly move when the guard stopped and turned back toward the door. Victor used all his willpower to grab his divine key. His eyes glowed brightly, and he screamed out in pain. The guard turned around in shock to see Victor get back to his feet, completely healed. "So that's your secret," said the guard in awe. "You might be hard to kill, but you're in no position to win." Victor lunged at the guard and kicked toward his groin. The guard twisted to absorb the hit with his muscular thigh, and then countered with a punch toward Victor's nose, throwing him back and spraying blood on the brick floor. Victor screamed as his injuries healed again. The guard rushed toward him with a diving tackle, bringing Victor right back to the floor. The guard laughed as he mercilessly thrashed Victor, and the pain became nearly unbearable as his body was being broken and being repaired simultaneously. He reached for something, and his hand found the plastic fork with which he had eaten his dinner. Instinctively he thrust it toward the face of the masked guard. Suddenly the masked man began screaming in pain, and the beating stopped. As Victor got to his feet, he noticed the handle of the plastic fork protruding from the eye of his opponent. It sickened him for a moment, but he knew he had to act quickly. He kicked the masked man toward the wall. The guard screamed in pain as he stumbled, and the fork was driven further into his wound. Victor took the chain that had bound him to the wall and wrapped it around the throat of his opponent. The masked guard strained to get air, but Victor waited until his struggling had nearly stopped before releasing the chain. The guard gagged and coughed violently as he struggled to get air. Victor gripped the chain tightly should his opponent try anything. He did not want to kill the guard, but he hoped he would be able to get information now that he had been victorious in battle. "Very good," said Carson, causing Victor to jump with a start. Clenched in his hand, he held a large, curved, chef-style knife that seemed to shine in the low light. "No," said Victor, knowing what the demon master intended to do. He rushed to stop him. Carson was able to predict Victor's movements and bypass him flawlessly. He thrust his knife into the back of his guard, then quickly drew it out. "I knew you would do that," said Carson with a sadistic grin. "Stop," said Victor. Of course, Carson did exactly what Victor expected. He thrust his black key into the wound, completing the rite of demon sacrifice. Victor had only gained consciousness a short time before, and already he had been used as a pawn of a mysterious demon worshipper. With his sponsor having the ability to foresee the future, Victor wondered if there were any possibility of helping his friends.